I know you clicked on the video because you saw the title, but before we go on with the video, I would like you guys to like, comment, subscribe, share the video with anyone that you feel that needs it. It's Ricky Ricardo from Unrestricted. Boom, onto the video.
In the studio, we've got mum of three, Rachel Halliwell. She says children should be kept away from the scales in the classroom. And beside her, weight loss expert Steve Miller, he says teachers intervening is the only hope for some children who are overweight. Why do you say that, Steve?
Well, I think it's children. We've got to be sensitive. That's the first thing to say.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always I don't have children, so who am I to have an opinion? But I'll give it. We are now in a situation where we have got a big child obesity epidemic. True. You know, if you think about it, in the last 4 years, 40% increase in type 2 diabetes in children.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And
is it 1 in 3 children are obese by the time they leave primary school?
A third. I've got some figures here. Between the age of 2 and 15, a third of children overweight or obese. Now, I know there's a lot of discussion about, you know, what's overweight with a child, and I think that has to be tightened up a little bit more, you know, to make it real. But we have got a problem, and it's just not going away. And what we're talking about here is weighing people once. Sorry, weighing the kids once a year.
But I think, Steve, what people are thinking, and Rachel, you may be amongst them, is that somehow it's a walk of shame and it's all going to be done in...
This is the problem I have with weighing children. Like, forget children, weighing anyone. It's like putting your dirty laundry in public. No one really wants people to know what's going on. And also, it opens up another avenue for bullies to bully. Oh, what's your numbers? What's your numbers? Oh, obviously his number's that big. We don't want to give overweight children another avenue to be bullied, another stream to be bullied, another reason to be bullied. You know, you're just kind of opening up, helping the bullies bully. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just so not cool. It's very intrusive, you know. All right, forget a child, right? Forget a child with all these newfound emotions and feelings and thoughts, right? Stick a 50-year-old that is self-conscious. Yeah, stick a 50-year-old that's self-conscious on the scales. Take him to the gym and say, you know what, before we start the session, you're gonna weigh yourself. Just for me, just for me. Like, no one wants to be weighed, do you know what I mean? Anyone that has a problem, they don't want to be weighed like that. Especially like, I don't know how they're gonna do it, but some kind of regimented style type of weighing and, you know, check and having them walk on a conveyor belt and weighing them. That's not cool, man. That's not cool. I promise you, you guys are going to give birth to anxiety and depression and all these different types of mental illnesses that a lot of these children go through, you know. You're gonna find a lot of truancy around the times and the days that they're gonna be the weigh-ins. I understand there's a problem, but there's other ways to deal with this problem without putting them on show like this.
Public, I'm assuming you're brought into a back room, you're weighed and your stats are confidentially recorded.
Yes, I expect so, and I think...
Like, backroom or no backroom, it's the same outcome, you know. It's the same anxious feeling of, oh, I'm going to get weighed. It's going to feel like when you're getting executed. Coming from a child, an overweight child, which was weighed at the dietitians, I did not like it, guys. And I can honestly say that when I knew I was going to get weighed, I didn't know what I was going through then, but I now know and see it as anxiety, guys. No. No.
What Steve and I both agree on is that obesity is a crisis. We have a crisis in this country. And, you know, 1 in 3 children leaving school overweight or obese, leaving primary school overweight or obese is terrible. But what we're doing, we need to find a really good, solid solution to this. And weighing children and calling them fat is just...
But they're not... No. This is where I get cross. Because you're...
Well, I know you're not going to directly call them fat, but you are going to put them in a certain category, you know, because what's the reason of doing this? You're going to be singling them out in front of everyone. Don't highlight or single people out. Any type of difference thing that they could be pulled on. All they want to do is blend in, fit in. But by you doing something like this, all you're going to do is highlight them even more. They're going to stand out even more. They're going to feel alienated even more.
Suggesting that the teachers and people and parents will start calling children fat. That's unfair. Listen, I have read headlines in the last few weeks, in the last few months, where children have died of obesity-related illness. So if this measure can help save life, which I believe it can contribute to, I don't see there's a problem with it. It's got to be done sensitively. It's got to be done with care. But here we go again.
Also, Rachel, this is the Royal College of Paediatrics and...
I don't want to judge before we get to the end of this, right? But what happens, okay, so let's say if a kid falls in the overweight, obese category, right? What do you do with them then? Like, what happens to them then? What are you going to do? Like, so what is you tallying up all these figures and numbers of all of the overweight, normal, underweight kids or whatever? What happens after? I need to know what happens after. But hopefully here they get to that. Hopefully they get to that, because if they don't get to that, then it's just, what are we doing this for? It's all in vain. It's all in vain.
Child Health, who are calling for this, they're saying that we need to stop this obesity epidemic, time bomb they're calling it.
Yeah,
so,
but-
you know, is it the fact that people won't even use the word fat anymore that's become the problem? That it's like we're all
We're
closing our ears to
normalising
it?
fat, Rachel.
I think this is a huge problem. It's a problem for society, and I think that weighing children is a very tiny part. It's a very small, ineffectual solution
Where would
to a
you start,
huge
then?
problem.
Where would you
I think
start?
I'd start with we need to, schools can be involved, but in that they teach children proper home economics. That we're not, you know, there was somebody. Just a minute, Steve.
Yeah, wait,
there was
Steve.
somebody talking on Twitter the other day about how their child had come home from a cookery lesson, and that lesson had involved buying a packet of puff pastry, a packet of sausages, put the sausages inside the puff pastry, and hey presto, you've made homemade sausage rolls. That is not.
So you think we should blame the teachers
why-
and not
yeah.
say to the parents, actually,
Wow.
if you're going to have a child, the health and weight of your child is primarily your responsibility. And actually, if you're not willing to take that on, you shouldn't have kids.
Right, so say
Okay.
you weigh the children, you send home
Yeah.
a letter to the parents who of the children who come out as being classed as overweight. What next? What do you
Yeah.
do next?
Well, I think that's a good point.
I
and
think what you're doing is you're classifying how much weight they've put on over the last year, which is a different thing than saying you start off and you're saying you
It's
are
monitoring
fat.
them, isn't it?
It's monitoring.
Well,
like they would monitor someone's education.
It's flagging
at
up a
their
problem.
level.
Yeah, but if you weigh children once a year, then you don't know whether at that point when you weigh them, they might just be about to have a growth spurt. I mean, I know I've got 3 daughters, and I know that before a child goes up, they
Yeah.
do sometimes go out a little
Were
bit.
any of your daughters ever overweight? Like
No.
obese or
No,
clinically overweight?
no.
Inga says, Stephen, this is a terrible idea. Kids will have eating disorders
Facts.
before they're 10.
Absolutely.
Julie says, I refuse.
Not all of them. Some children, you know, this is the thing, right? There's not one size fits for everyone. Some people will, you know, excel. Some people will do well. Some people would adhere to it. Some people wouldn't mind it. And some people just will not like it, accept to it. They'll rebel. They'll reject it. It's just very, very different. The fact that you're going to say you're just going to weigh everyone regardless, guys, that's not going to work. I don't see how that's going to work. Some children could start eating disorders. Do you know what I mean? Could.
refuse to have my child weighed at school. Kids are going to start getting eating disorders or complexes about their body weight and shape. People talk a lot now about mental health.
I know, and I
anxiety.
understand that, and I hear it. But number one, the biggest eating disorder we have got is called obesity. It is the biggest eating disorder. A lot of the
Eating disorder is obesity. No, the eating disorder leads to obesity. Eating disorder is not obesity. Steve.
leading experts say that it's very, very superficial to suggest that weighing a child, doing a health check with a child once a year is going to trigger an eating disorder. I think it's naive to suggest that. Yes, do it sensitive.
The anticipation of the weight will trigger anxiety, which will trigger the eating disorder, which will affect on the scales. Steve.
Sensitively. Yes, do it from a place of care. But come on, kids are dying because they have the obesity.
But kids are also dying of anorexia, and I think that any
How many? How many?
Any psychologist.
You have just
Oh, Steve.
national television. Kids are dying of anorexia. How many?
I don't know.
Well,
but what
there you
I
go.
do know is that if you speak to any psychologist, they will tell you that obesity is far more complicated than eating too much and moving too little. There are all sorts of things going on
Solution?
there.
What's the solution?
But would you think that every single child who's overweight is because they have a mental health issue? I would think a lot of people would say it's because of what they're eating.
Yes.
And it's often because the parents are too fat. Let's not wrap this up. There are some...
So we should be weighing the parents, should we?
Hang on. Some great parents out there, millions of fantastic parents. There are some...
It does come from the parents to a degree, because especially of an obese child, because they control most of what goes into the child's mouth. You know, they control the amount of movement that the child does. So providing that the child is able-bodied and you know, healthy, the child should be able to run off and burn off, outmove the amount of food what goes in. The parents do play a huge role in the weight of the child. That's truth. That's facts.
Parents that do not take that responsibility serious.
Yeah. Look, as you say, it's a complex issue, but is this not just one ingredient in actually solving all of this?
I don't. I just think it's a far more complicated thing, and I think we need far more intelligent solutions than sticking kids on scales. I think as a society, we have dug a great big hole for our kids in that we've given them technology that's turned them into couch potatoes.
You're a blamer. Where's the solution? You're not coming up with. You're just coming up with excuses after excuses.
I think that what we can do as society and what government can do is look at, you know, fixing this in other ways, looking at, you know, educating kids in schools about healthy eating,
and
educating their parents as well.
So yeah, definitely schools and definitely parents. But at the same time, sometimes the parents are so stuck in their ways that they're not even ready to change. It's tough to say, but it's like we got to attack the kids, and hopefully the kids will grow up and be responsible and, you know, look after themselves, because they'll be armed with the education on how to do it. The parents, man, it's tough, because if they're set in their ways, and like a lot of the parents don't see nothing wrong with it, it's habit, and I can't see too many parents understanding that they have to change their ways to change the outcome of their child's health. Sometimes the parents are going through certain things as well, which leads to their eating disorder, and because they're going through certain things, it's like that monkey see, monkey do type thing, where they can't tell their children not to because of the simple fact that they're living that lifestyle. It's like, well, you're contradicting yourself, Dad. You're telling me not to, but you're doing it. So it's like, it makes it a little bit harder for them to do it. Childhood obesity is a tough one, but I do feel we do have to attack the parents, but mainly attack the kids, because hopefully then when they grow up, they'll be able to teach their kids better so they can do better. I'm not saying the parents are lost cause, but I'm just saying, like, if the parents ain't taking the initiative to do something now, I can't see someone, you know, coming in unless it's like a serious life or death situation. I can't see the parents looking to change. But people like myself is preparing, or I'm ready to go into schools and definitely educate the schools, and definitely assist and help parents, you know, definitely bring the solution. I'm ready. I feel like I'm armed and ready with a few solutions. The more I do what I'm doing, I find more solutions. Education and applied education. Knowledge and applied knowledge. Anyway, guys, I'm signing the video off here. It's Ricky Ricardo from Unrestricted Boom.